Welcome back to another episode of Front Row Cinema, a movie podcast for movie lovers by movie lovers. I am your host, TJ Trimboli, and with me, as always, my co-host. I got the owner and operator of Club Wandersex, Mr. James O'Reilly, in the house tonight.
That is vicious slander, and I will not stand for it.
Come on, I know you love, dude. You got a flyer? I saw the flyer. Don't try and deny this.
Yeah, it's already
You,
trying.
you sent me the flyer. I edited it for you. This is a thing. Don't
It's
hide
fake
behind your
news.
Wandersex.
Fake news.
And each week we take a look at my 1,000 movies I've seen in theaters and we see how well it's aged, along with the hype surrounding the film, its box office analysis, and legacy in the film industry. So if you enjoy this kind of content, hit that sub button on YouTube, leave that 5-star review on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. It's how you help the channel grow. Jim, what are we digging on tonight?
We're watching Eurotrip,
That's right.
2004's Eurotrip.
2004 sex comedy, a genre that we do not see too much of today. Maybe for a good reason, maybe not. I don't know. We'll find out. Directed by Jeff Schaffer from a script by him, Alec Berg, and David Mandel. We just saw these boys a few episodes
Coming
ago for
back
the
from
Cat in
Cat in
the
the
Hat,
Hat.
coming back hard, my Seinfeld boys, and starring Michelle Trachtenberg. And I don't think anyone else really needs to be named because none of the other actors you've ever really seen in anything other than the cameos. So we'll stick with Michelle Trachtenberg, and that's all you're
Sorry,
getting.
but I'm gonna ask that you use her royal title. Thank you very much.
What is her royal title?
The Ice Princess, Michelle Trachtenberg.
I was like, there's a few different ways he could go with Michelle right here, right now, and Ice Princess was not the spot I thought you were going.
Isn't that the name of that ice skating movie she's in? Ice
Yeah,
Princess?
yeah, no, yeah, that is the movie, but it's
All
not.
right, just so we're clear, you
I
should use
thought
her proper title.
you're right. I'm sorry. Ice Princess,
Deserves more respect than that.
Michelle Trachtenberg. No, it was very funny to see our boys show back up so soon already. Alec Berg, David Mandel, and Jeff Schaffer. I after Cat in the Hat did not think they'd give them another at bat. But I guess this one coming out so soon after the Cat in the Hat, they probably had both of these ones in the tank before Hollywood can be like, we're not letting you do this anymore.
Yeah, I don't know. Those guys, I think, can survive at least one Cat in the Hat. I think that they have esteemed enough careers that somebody's going to be willing to go to bat with them.
Yeah, well, they might just be like, we're keeping you in the TV realm because Seinfeld and Curb, you guys are at an 11. Cat in the Hat and Eurotrip, maybe not so much. Now we
Yeah,
got
I'm
the
sure they'll. Maybe we'll talk a little bit more about them later too. See what
maybe
else they
yeah
have.
maybe we'll see if they got to touch upon anything else theatrically. We got the DVD cover here for our lovely little log line on the back, and it reads. It's a crash course in foreign relations as college bound Scotty Thomas and his buddies head to Europe for the ultimate summer vacation party. They're hooking up with hot strangers and jamming all the extreme insanity they can into the wildest trip of their lives. Yeah, I guess. Sure.
Yeah,
Kind of.
it's always interesting to go back to these comedies because it might just be that I was a kid at the time, but I remember thinking that this movie was very wild and crazy. And looking back on it now, I'm like, this isn't even really that out there, I don't think. Like, there's certain parts where it gets there, but for the most part, it feels pretty tame. Like, what do you think?
No, I don't think it's that. I think there's one scene in particular that, we'll dive into when we dive into the actual movie that is probably right on the line, maybe wildly offensive for some people, but I think for the most part, a lot of this is mildly tame, and I think also probably for most people, if they're discovering it today, is tame and just offensive.
Yeah, I suppose, yeah.
But yeah, yeah, and that's all the little foreplay we'll give you for that. But let's turn it over to our box office because this movie, joining a classic amount of comedies from the 2000s that did not come to par when it came to the box office.
Numbers, dates, numbers, numbers, dates, array, dates, numbers. Show me the money.
All right. Eurotrip opens against a $25 million budget, which I mean, isn't really that
Respectable.
high for a lot of the movies we've been doing recently, but it still seems pretty high when you compare it to like Super Troopers, which was made with like $1 million.
But also, this is an actual studio pumping money behind. They're at least going to sink at least 20 into something like this. Do you think they actually filmed on location?
So I saw something about this. They filmed, from what I was reading, they filmed most of this movie in Prague. And then they
Okay.
just green screened in other shit in the background. Like if you see like Big Ben in the background, they just filmed it in Prague and we're just like, all right, let's just put Big Ben in there and like in post, I guess.
That is hilarious. Honestly, think now that you've said that, that makes so much more sense. Because when they're in Paris, and now having been to Paris, there when they first show up, there's this huge the Eiffel Tower, and then in the foreground where they are is a whole like big bunch of buildings. But if you've been to Paris, the it's just a grassy area around like the Eiffel Tower. Like there's those buildings would not be there.
Right, right. Like it's obvious that it's not
Yeah.
in the same
So
place in real
that's
life. Yeah.
so funny now that you say that.
Yeah, sorry. Most of us unfancy Americans were fooled because we've never been to Paris.
Sorry. Yeah, I'm one of the very few cultured Americans walking about town strutting my big dick.
Surprised.
I've been to Paris.
I'm surprised you're not calling it Paris.
Yeah. I'm not that cultured.
Yeah. But so yeah, they filmed it like at least sort of on location. I mean, it makes sense to me that they wanted to just pick one location because that'll definitely keep the budget down, right?
Yeah. And they could also probably just use like an assortment of different buildings there that are European looking enough to at least be passable for a dumb comedy. Like I don't think anybody's going to
Yeah.
this for stunning recreation of locales.
I mean, they fooled me. I didn't think twice about any of it. So
Yeah,
they
very true.
but so yeah, against the $25 million budget, not bad, especially if you're filming part of this in Europe. But just for this type of movie, again, when you have Super Troopers on the list already with a $1 million budget, it's crazy that they spent 25 million to make this movie to me. It's just like it's because they're kind of in the same lane in a way,
Yeah.
and I don't know. It's just a lot of money. And it opens to the weekend of February 20th through the 22nd. It opens in fifth place with $6.7 million.
Oh my God,
That might be
Jimbo,
the
it
lowest
is
one we've had yet, right?
nope, but very close. It's definitely in the top five. It is in the number 60 position, and it is going to sit just behind Kung Pao's $7 million and just ahead of Super Troopers 6.2. Horrific to see this movie not doing as well opening weekend as Kung Pao. That is just what are we doing?
Yeah, another movie that was like pretty cheap, right? If I remember
Sickening. Yeah.
correctly.
Yeah. Yeah. The bottom of the heap is never a spot you want to be in, and particularly hanging around Kung Pao.
Yeah, so not really off to a great start.
What opened
Um,
number one that weekend?
Open
Because
number one
because
that weekend. We're
that's got to
still
be
in
President's Week, right?
this is the second week of 51st dates.
Oh, okay. All right. So
So
second, so
51st
51st
dates
date
is still in
still
first.
slinging hard. Everyone's going for the rom-coms, not really for the gross out comedy.
We talked about a couple of the other openings, like notable openings on that episode as well. Confessions of a Teenage Drama Queen, the Lindsay Lohan vehicle is down here in second. Welcome to Mooseport, the Ray Romano vehicle
Oh
is
my
down here in
God.
fourth.
What an
I
assortment.
missed I missed one notable opening in particular though.
Oh boy. What was
Do
it?
you remember 2004's Meg Ryan and Omar Epps sports comedy Against the Ropes?
Yes, I do. Oh
I
boy, oh boy.
I totally forgot that this existed, and man, it would be so interesting to go back and watch because
Oh God.
it's got to be up there with SWAT for early 2000s movies.
Absolutely. Well, now you got a hard question to ask yourself. Are we hitting the ropes or are we sticking with Jesus Christ?
Yeah, I think we're still going to do Passion of the Christ. I'm not giving up on that just yet. But yeah, Against the Ropes is down here in eighth with $3 million on its
That's
opening weekend. Pretty rough.
that sounds about right.
Um,
Man,
Weekend
February
two
'04.
of Eurotrip, it's already kind of dropping like a rock.
Oh
And
no.
so I'm not going to talk. I think we're just going to ride this out of the top 10 because the
Oh yeah,
number
I
one movie
can't
this
imagine
week.
he's hanging around long. Okay, what's
Yeah,
the number one
the
movie?
number one movie this week is The Passion of the Christ, and I think we're
Nice.
gonna kind of do this run at some point.
Can't wait.
So let's just focus on Eurotrip and ride it out of the top 10, right?
Mm.
So weekend two, it's already down in seventh place.
Oh, sinking hard.
39.6% drop. Doesn't sound too bad, but it started at 6.7
Yeah.
million, so it's already down to 4 million.
Oh my Lord. Sinking like a stone.
And then in weekend three, March 5th to the 7th, it's down in 13th place, a 60% drop to 1.6 million.
Oh my God. All right. So joining a legion of two weekers right here. My God, these movies. Joining Kung Pao, Eight Crazy Nights, and Dumb and Dumberer for 2 weeks in the top 10. That's just disappointing to see.
Yeah, pretty tough, pretty tough. And I mean, just some totals. Remember, a $25
Okay. I
million
was
dollar
gonna say, do I
budget,
even want to hear the totals?
domestic 17.8 million,
Oh,
international 4.8 million for a
oh,
worldwide total of 22.6. So it doesn't even
oh
make
my
back its budget.
God. Yeah, I can't even make back your budget. That's a bummer and a half. Uh,
Although
you said
I
what,
will
20?
say
Yeah,
that this is probably like a prime example of a movie that doesn't do great in theaters, but it's gonna get a cult following, and I
yes.
feel like they probably rake it in home video.
Yeah, now I couldn't find like actual numbers, but they did make a point to say that it went on to be a cult classic and do really well on home video, like you said, but they don't have actual numbers for it. But if they're making a point to like state that it did well on home video, you have to imagine that it's probably sold enough to at least, not be a world round success, but at least you're not losing money.
Yeah, and it's honestly like it's probably the reason this movie exists is because they're saying like, well, okay, we're gonna spend 25 million on it, but if it's good enough and it's funny enough, we'll get enough of an audience, regardless of who sees it in theaters, that it'll
Yeah,
spread on home video, and we'll make our money back and then some.
bought it on home video, so they got me. You said it was 122 was the worldwide
Yeah,
total.
22.6.
Once again, joining the bottom legion of the bottom four. It's going to hit in the number 62 spot, just behind Super Troopers and Super Troopers 23 million and just ahead of Kung Pao's 16.9. So oof, tough loss right there. Absolutely tough loss.
Yeah,
And
interesting though that it kind of matches up with movies that we'd expect it to match up with. Like, if I had
yeah,
to put all the movies we've done into a box, those three would definitely end up in the same
end
box.
up all like hanging around together. Yeah. Whether deserved or not remains to be seen. Critically, though, this is about where you would expect it. 47% from the critics, which honestly seems on the high end. I would have thought the critics would have loathed this movie. Audience, though, high. You can see how this became a cult classic. 75% approval rating from the audience. So
Yeah, makes
audience
sense.
audience in on Eurotrip. 6.6 from IMDb and a B cinema score. So kind of a death sentence, at least where a cinema score is concerned.
Yeah,
You,
but
you
Eurotrip's not going for your classic metrics like cinema score. It's trying to transcend those things to touch an
Euro,
audience that isn't well represented.
Eurotrip
I
is
don't know, I'm just
going
totally
in.
bullshitting.
Eurotrip is going in on the cult classic. It knew from the get go what the people wanted. Funny little anecdote to go along with that. So, because I just realized we completely skipped our memories of this movie. Um, when I bought the soundtrack to this movie. I loved it so much when I was a kid. And
Yeah,
one of the things that always cracked me up as a kid is in the liner notes, the little jacket booklet that they give you, jacket booklet that they
the
give you.
Jacklet booklet.
Yeah, the jacket booklet, the old jacket booklet. There was a note from Jeff Schaefer and Alec Berg and all them where I didn't realize that, they're obviously fucking about, but like because back then I totally believed that what they were writing was true, and now as an adult I realized like no, they were just fucking with you. But they
Okay.
wrote that they were like, we had this collection of songs that we loved so much, and we were like, this would be perfect, this collection of songs in a movie, but we were like, well, what do we do? Like, so then we just wrote a movie around the songs. They're like, because like the songs were so perfect to be a soundtrack, so we wrote the movie to give us the soundtrack. Like the soundtrack's what we wanted to give you guys. The movie's just like icing on the cake. And I
Yeah,
totally believed that back then. And now as an
yeah.
adult, I'm like, they're just being douches. Like,
That's definitely like that note gets written after Alec Berg calls his agent and is like, "Do I really have to write this fucking blurb for the for the
for the
soundtrack
soundtrack.
to the movie? Like, what do they want me to do?"
They're like, yeah, we need you to just write a little something. And they're like, I don't know, like we wanted to make a CD, but we needed a movie to go with it. So here's the
Right,
movie.
right. Yeah, that's
Ugh.
definitely like I can feel the disdain for that task just dripping off of that note. That's
Yeah,
actually really funny.
trivial. Yeah, so that was so funny. I always remember that cracked me up so much. Because I loved this movie when I was a kid. When I going to see it with Zach and Big Rob, I was all in on this one from the get-go. What about you? Did you see this in theaters?
No, I didn't see this in theaters, and it was one of those movies where everybody I knew felt like they saw it in theaters, so I kind of picked up a lot of this through the collective unconscious, like osmosis, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I just heard people talk about a lot of these scenes, so it's weird. I remember more of this going into it, and I don't even know if I've ever seen the whole thing before this than I did for a lot of the movies that I actually have seen, if that makes sense.
Yeah, like it's one of those movies that you know more of just because of everybody quoting it for however long they were quoting it.
Yeah, it like permeated the culture I was in at the time.
Yeah.
So
No,
I
it
learned
it
a lot of like the different scenes and all the
yeah,
different things that happen.
it did. I remember being in gym class at right after this movie came out and being in with a couple of kids that we went to school with and just talking about it. And they were like, yeah, dude, we went and saw it over the weekend. Like, it was fucking hilarious. It was like, yeah, dude, it was hilarious. It was like that was the movie everybody was talking about.
Yeah.
So it's funny that it felt so, as far as we were concerned in school, worldwide. But you
Yeah,
look at the
it
box
didn't.
office and it's like nobody. It was like was Long Island all of the people that went and saw it? Like,
Honestly, maybe. Like it might have just been everybody in our high school went to it like
yeah.
5 times.
Like it's a movie just so tailor made for like the Long Island high school experience in
Yeah.
2004.
I will say though, it didn't quite permeate the culture as much as Napoleon Dynamite did, like just a couple of years later.
Also very, yeah, that's
Like it
another one.
wasn't quite that big, but it was close to that big, I
Yeah.
think.
Well, yeah, Eurotrip was one more in the sense that it was like what everyone talked about for a week, and then by the time the next big movie came out, everyone had just collectively forgotten about Eurotrip.
Yeah, it did not quite reach Napoleon Dynamite levels, which was really like you walked into school the week after Napoleon Dynamite came out, and people were just like, "Right? Wasn't that like the peak? Like that was the most amazing thing I've ever seen."
That was all anybody would talk about, and it took no time at
Yeah,
all for kids to show up and like vote for Pedro shirts and everything. That was
absolutely. Yeah.
yeah, that was definitely a seminal time for high school. But so I got a couple user reviews for you here, Jim.
Oh boy, I
And
can only
yeah, and I
imagine.
I thought Eurotrip would bring some heat because
I'm on I'm on the lookout for our production code guy. I want to see if production code guy is still out there fighting the good fight.
I would imagine that man is always out there fighting the good fight. I don't think he's going to turn up this week though. But so we got our first review here, and he goes, "This movie has some serious scenes of disrespect. Couples having sex in the Vatican, in the confessional. I'm sure the writer and director aren't even Catholic or even Christian. Being in Hollywood, I think I can figure out what religious denomination wrote this. Oh
Oh
boy.
my God, dude,
Oh
time is
boy.
a flat circle.
Again, they have taken a stab at the Catholic Church, showing their lack of respect for any other religion. This movie should be avoided at all costs because it is just really bad."
Nice. This might be, I think this might be the first time somebody called out the lizard people.
Yeah,
This might be
yeah. It's definitely the
in our
first one that
reviews.
springs
I'm
to
kind
mind
of
for me.
surprised it took us this long to get there, but yeah, we got there.
All it took was a sex scene in the Vatican to get us there when we finally got there.
Yeah.
God, just like Jesus Christ, lady. Like we
You
could
need to
figure
be
it.
so crazy to think that that's part of like Eurotrip is part of some like global Hollywood conspiracy. It's so
Yeah,
crazy.
that like that was their like psyop is like we're gonna put Eurotrip, and that's slowly gonna like seed the plant in everybody's mind on
Yeah,
fucking
we're going to
Catholic
erode
Church.
the power of the Catholic Church
Church.
by setting sex scenes in teen comedies there.
Because you know what's gonna do it? Sex scenes in teen comedy, and not all the child fucking that the Catholic Church has done. Allegedly.
After Eurotrip, nobody's gonna respect the Pope ever again. Like, it's like so stupid.
I would love to take that review and then put it up against any review probably right now for Conclave. They would probably match up perfectly.
Yeah, I mean, you're not wrong. Just swap out a few words.
Swap out a few little sentences and we'll be there. We got our next reviewer here. This guy, very, very not happy with these uncultured Americans that we are. He says, this film, very, very stupid. Americans are very racist against Europe. They understand nothing about our big history and culture, but they judicate us. They judicate us. I'm Italian and I'm proud to be Italian. This film is very racist against Italians. In Italy, we think that American are very racist, stupid, ignorant, dirty, and drunkard. The only person drunkard in Italian, wonderful pizza, are stupid Americans. That what the fuck was that sentence, guy? Italians seen them and smile. American girls are seen as very fat and ridiculous or very easy and drunkard. So American boys are seen as gay. They think only to drink. They don't see girl but beer. And are seen as
Oh
girls
my
without
God.
style but very easy. I want you to remember that Cristoforo Colombo had discovered America, and Amerigo Vespucci is called American in this way. White House is a copy of Greek and Roman style, and Italian language is older than English. Respect for Italy. We have style, we are friendly and hospitable, but you Americans must respect us.
Well, first of all, I got bad news for you, buddy. Americans don't respect anybody. Like,
They don't
not
even
even
respect
each
other
other.
Americans.
No,
Like,
I mean, I'm not gonna lie, that guy was really cooking in the first half. I'm not like he was really
like
cooking.
the Italians, I feel like get off pretty easy in this movie compared to their stereotypes.
I mean, the only Italian guy I remember is well, I guess they spend time in Rome at the end, but the Italian sex pest on the train is like pretty rough, I thought.
Oh yeah, I forgot that guy.
But I loved that review because he was like, Americans are like everything he said about Americans for the first like four sentences, I was like, yep, check, check. Yeah, you
Like,
got
yeah,
it. I mean, you're not
yes,
wrong.
yes, we are racist. Yes, absolutely. Stupid, totally. Ignorant.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, right. It was like all of it. And then it's somewhere in the middle, he turned into the dad from My Big Fat Greek Wedding, where he's like, and Italy give you government. And he was just like, that's when he lost me. When I was just like, all right, buddy, come on, you weren't there. Let's take a deep breath.
And
Like,
I
you don't
love
get
how
to
he,
just claim that stuff.
and I love how he was like American boys gay because they don't see girls, only beer. It's like what, dude?
Yeah, I'm just saying, I don't know. Maybe he's kind of sympathizing with the sex pest on the train?
Yeah, I
Question
don't know.
mark.
I would be like, dude, what was that
I'm
shit
just
about
a I'm
Christopher
just a
Columbus, bro?
stupid, arrogant American, but that's what I think.
Yeah, right. Like, my God, dude. Big fan of Christopher Columbus too. That guy. He would be horrified
Yeah,
to see what
that's
we.
what I mean.
He'd be horrified
Like in
to
the
see what we did
middle,
to
he
him over
turned into
here.
the dad from Big Fat Greek Wedding. He's like, and Christopher Columbus discovered America.
In this house, he's an Italian hero. You pay him some respect.
Yeah.
It's like
Oh
Jesus
man.
Christ, man. Yeah, that was another good one. And then what do we got? We got one last one star here, and they write, "Who in his right mind is going to laugh at this? It's not about Europe. It's about Americans' prejudices against about a continent they apparently know nothing about."
Yeah, absolutely. We know
Like
nothing about it. I
It's like
promise.
it's like yeah, I think that was the joke they were making, but okay. Because this movie just shows that there are people who are not able to leave puberty behind. Well, if you think England's inhabited by skinhead hooligans, in France everyone's just waiting for some retarded or immature American schoolboys to teach them to laugh. If you further believe every Italian is a gay mafioso, there's still something like the Hitler Youth in Germany, and literally every European girl is fired about the idea of fucking American idiots. We'll learn nothing about Europe, but you might learn about your sexist, racist sense of humor.
So I'm really confused. Like, who do these people think this movie is for?
Yeah, like I don't know. But also like
Because I mean, think about it. This movie,
there
it's for teen boys, right? It's
yeah,
for teen American boys. Of course they think that they go to Europe and every girl wants to have fuck American guys. That's like how teen boys think, you know what I mean? They're like,
but also
they
like
have that weird like fantasy of what it would be like to go there and like it would be so cool because they're American. Like totally, right? I'm not, am I crazy?
no, I think you hit the nail on the head. And I also think they're just there. I feel like they're just being way too serious about, like what's a dumb comedy. But also like she answered her own question. Like it's about Americans' prejudice about a continent they know nothing about. And it's like, yeah, that's the whole joke of the movie is that they're fucking morons. Like
Right. Right.
and it's their stereotypical idea of like what they think a Euro trip is gonna be.
Right. And I mean, I might be skipping ahead a little bit here, but that's kind of hammered home by the brownie scene in Amsterdam, right? Like they're just eating brownies, but they're trying to make it into this like Amsterdam stereotypical experience, you know what I mean?
And it's just like because they're like uncultured morons. Like it's like that's like the joke of the movie. And they're
Yeah.
sitting here just like they're making fun of me. It's like, no, they're making fun of them. Like
Yeah. The difference is though, Americans may be stupid and arrogant, but most for the most part they can take a joke.
we
Like
can take a joke and we do have some semblance of an idea of satire. Like whether it's done
a,
well or not, it's another question. But like
right, a lot of us have just embraced the fact that we're stupid and arrogant and think it's actually kind of hilarious.
yeah, it's a point of pride for for plenty of Americans these days.
So, yeah.
Then we hop over to our 10-star people, who are going to go on the opposite side of the spectrum. They write to sum up the plot, ballsy. This movie, while being a frat boy's wet dream, is unique among the teenage comedy drivel that is typically marketed at high school and college students. They bash on every possible stereotype that typical Americans have about Europe and do so without reserve to political correctness, decorum, or even good tastes. Nothing is sacred, nothing at all. The comedy in this movie is what old school wanted to capture, but failed miserably.
Oh boy, here we go. Here we
Like,
go.
gotta
The
take the
10
pot
star review
shot.
trope of tearing down another movie.
Gotta take a pot shot at something else to pick up what they loved. It's like so funny. And it's just like, see, like right here, they get it. We might be dumb Americans, but they understood that it's bashing on typical Americans and their like reserved stereotypes about what they think about Europe. Like,
Yeah, no, that person definitely. I mean, we're falling into the 10 star trap here, but I think they understood the movie a lot better. Yeah.
God, those Europeans just didn't understand it. They should watch it again through maybe a better lens these days. We
Yeah,
got a
definitely.
yeah, we got
That's the
a
only way they could give it 1 star is as if they were just idiots who didn't watch it right.
yeah, right, fucking morons. We got two more here. We got this last person right over here. They write three cheers for beers. All in all, wasn't a bad movie, as critics are saying. Then again, what is a good movie? I love to go to the movies and laugh. With this movie, I laughed. I've seen it twice, might even go a third time. Everyone I talked to said it was degrading the women. I think the movie just made fun of guys more than it did girls. The movie wasn't a great screenwrite, but it was a great movie. Guy, take it for what it was, a comedy. Three cheers for Eurotrip.
I love this might be one of my favorite ones we've done because if your second sentence is, but after all, what does good even mean? Like you're maybe don't have a leg to stand on, you know?
Is like, I wouldn't agree with the critics, but then again, what do I know?
No, it's not even what do I know, it's what does any of us really know? Yeah. Like who can define what's a good movie or a bad movie?
It's like
Therefore, I give Eurotrip a 10.
a 10. Three cheers for beers. I think that guy might have had a few beers before he wrote that review.
Yeah.
And then we got one last one here. I read a few of the comments on the movie and a few of the replies, and I have to say that some people need to put their heads out of their anuses. This movie was funny and made light of very laughable situations. It's a common known fact that when Americans go over to Europe, that a vast majority of them are ignorant of the culture and geography. They only know about the things that are highlighted in the news and by people who have lived there. Sex and drugs. What? This movie isn't made to cater to old people, but was made to entertain the basest of our intellect. I, for one, found it hilarious because the movie ribbed every aspect of people and was just damn funny. If you want to watch a movie for correctness, watch a historical documentary or biographical film. Otherwise, enjoy the show. P.S. Don't spend the money if you don't have the money.
What
What?
what does that mean?
Like,
Don't. Does this guy just go around like adding life advice to every movie review he leaves? Like, what was that?
what did that have to do with anything else?
He's like, here's my review of this movie. And by the way, watch out for credit card debt. That's so funny.
Oh my god, that one is just absolutely glorious. I mean, hey,
Yeah, that's not me, right? That came totally out of nowhere. I
yeah,
didn't
that
miss like the setup for
no,
that. There's
no,
no clever joke happening
that's
here.
completely out of left field. Like when I read that one, I was like, I got to put that one in there simply because it's the most insane way I've ever seen someone end a review.
Wait, what was it again exactly? Don't spend the money
Don't
if you don't
spend the
have the
money
money?
if you don't have the money.
Damn, words to live
Yeah,
by.
words of wisdom. From Hidari R. Huel. So good for you, my friend. We'll keep an eye out for more of your nuggets of wisdom in the future from future movies.
Yeah, we gotta get on this. We gotta start mapping out when we can reuse reviewers. I want to start creating like FBI profiles of these people.
We've got dossiers on random IMDb reviewers.
Like whoever that guy is, he might just end up being my financial advisor by the end of this. I'm just saying, he's he's already one for one.
Yeah, he's already got like a great grasp of the of all the things I need to know. So I'm all in board on that guy. Uh, but let's turn it over to us now, Jim. Let's see where we end on the spectrum here for Eurotrip. Any big thoughts that stick out to you from this movie?
Uh, it's of all the comedies we've done, it might be the one that I still think is like really funny. It might be the one that I think there's actually some genuine like laughs in there.
I'm very glad to hear you say that because I had the same exact thought while watching this movie. I was like
Like,
pleasantly surprised to see that this held up for the most part. Yeah, there's definitely some more questionable, tasteless things in this.
well, I'm interested to hear which ones you thought were tasteless though, because I feel like in the comedies we've done so far, they were a lot more obvious. You know what I mean? They were a lot more like as soon as like the scene was set, I was like, "Oh boy, here we go. Like this is definitely where this is going."
Definitely a bit more subtle with this one. But this movie also follows in a long line of other movies that is very painstakingly like making jokes about people that might be dudes.
I really, how many was there? I didn't even pick up on it.
Well,
Maybe I just like
there's there's
was attention was turned at the wrong time.
I think there's two that spring to mind.
Okay.
Obviously, the lesser one is just the one that kicks the plot in motion. Is that the idea of like as soon as he hears that he thinks like Mike would want to come just visit America, he immediately assumes that Mike just wants to fuck him and is like trying to come and like he's like, no, you sick freak. Like I don't want to fuck you. Like just instantly immediate. But again, that one is more on like him being a moron. Like a lot
Yeah,
of the jokes in this movie are.
it's also I think like more about the internet than it is about like any like confusion about whether it's a guy or a girl. Like, because that's like a thing, like that people have been saying about the internet forever is like there's always just a horny dude on the other side of the screen, you know? Like, it's like
Just
well, whoever
waiting
you
for you.
think you're talking to, it's probably just some dude, you know?
Yeah, and I don't know why I can't think of it now, but I feel like there was one more that while watching I was like, oh shit, but I forgot to write it down. And now I can't think of it. Maybe as we talk about the movie, it'll spring back to me. But I
Yeah.
feel like there was one more in there that I was like, oh boy, okay. but yeah,
Yeah,
definitely
and
not
maybe
nearly
it's
as bad.
there, but I think to my point though, it's not close to like Scary Movie or
Oh yeah,
you know
definitely
with
not.
like the gym teacher where it's just like such low-hanging fruit that
Yeah,
they're
no, no,
taking.
no,
You know what I
definitely.
mean? Like,
Definitely not. I think this movie too, and it's interesting that you see it come up so much in the reviews because watching this movie, I did immediately get that it was like this just feels like the joke is all on the Americans because like these four kids are retarded, like they're just morons.
yeah, and like surprise, surprise, when you get good TV comedy writers to do a thing, right? Like, what isn't that like a huge part of so many successful sitcoms that like the joke is on the main characters like the
The
whole
joke is
time? You
that
know what I
yeah,
mean? Like,
and that's something you always bring up too when we talk about comedy movies is that our main character has to be kind of like a bumbling doofus, like they have to
right,
be
right.
stupid
He has
to
to
let
be pathetic. He
yeah
has to be an idiot, you know?
yeah
Like
to
that's
let
how
these
it
go.
works so much
And
better when they
yeah,
are.
and boy howdy is Scotty an idiot. Is there any better start to this movie than what is probably the best cameo in all of cinema of Matt Damon showing up as the the singer for that band?
I don't even know if it's the best Matt Damon cameo though.
Well, yeah, he has made a career of just being the greatest cameoer of all time. But this one kicked it off really. And I don't think anybody going to see this movie in 2004 ever for a second thought that Jason Bourne would show up like to do
No.
that cameo right there. Like which
No,
is
and it's he
so
looks
funny.
hilarious. He looks hilarious. Like I've never seen Matt Damon look anything remotely like that in anything else, but he plays it so perfect.
Uh,
And then it's maybe my favorite part that he comes out and does his little intro, and then as soon as he starts singing, it cuts to like you can tell the audio is just this
oh
terribly
yeah.
dubbed like
Yeah.
early 2000s pop punk song.
It's
It's
just not
just so
him at
amazing.
all. Yeah, it's so funny. Yeah, I love that whole opening is so good. And I love, to me, I talk about this so much, especially with comedies. It's never the big set piece jokes that always crack me up the most. It's always the little things that they could sprinkle into a comedy movie, like visual gags that really crack me up. Like one of my favorite jokes in this movie that I think I laughed the hardest at is in that party when they're walking, like, and they're just walking and talking through the party and they pass, they're like, yo, Warren, great party, dude. And Warren is just tied up to a tree with tape over his mouth. So it's like they just invaded his house for the party.
Right, right. Poor Warren is just things have spiraled so far out of control.
Yeah.
Like he's
Like,
made a terrible mistake.
yeah. And like Scotty just like slaps him on the back as they walk past. And like I'm like, dude, that joke is so funny. Like like that cracked me up than the majority of any like set piece in this movie.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, yeah, that was good. There, I do agree with you that they nailed a lot of the little things, right? Like one of my favorite parts of the movie, it's like maybe 5 seconds when they are hitchhiking and the trucker pulls over and he's like, "Guys, I got this. I speak a little bit of German." And he's like, "Hello?" And the guy's like, "Oh yeah, hello." And then he like turns to his friends and is like, "See, so far so good." Like, and it's like all you said is hello. Like this has, but just that one part where he's like, he's going in like baby steps and he's like, "Yep, we nailed the first one, guys. Hello, hello."
Like
Like
we got it.
that stuff cracks me up.
That cracks me up. There's a lot of good run jokes in this. We talk a
There's
lot
a
about in comedy, the rule of three is always such a big thing. And the rule of three one on Cooper working for the lawyer firm still and taking the calls throughout the movie, I
yeah.
thought was so like it had such a good payoff where it just turns out there's like, oh no, the other guy got fired. I got a raise.
I thought that was so stupid, honestly.
Really?
Like
No,
it
I
was
love
one I
I
was
love
thinking
those.
I was probably thinking a little too hard about it, but just the idea that he could be in Europe and this guy was calling him and had no idea he wasn't actually there. You know what it just didn't track like whatsoever.
It's really stupid. But
And then
again,
he
like this
graduated high
movie,
school like 2 weeks ago and he's like, "Yeah, I got a raise and an office." It's like, dude, where are you working again? Like you got an office? You're like 17 years old. Like
To that, I would say I think you may be a little bit hard on what is the dumb comedy that
Yeah,
clearly
yeah.
isn't taking itself seriously.
No, I know, but it just like the jokes, like it needs to make sense for me. Like I need to believe it a little bit to laugh at it, I guess. Like even in a comedy, like there needs to be some semblance of like reality to me. I don't know.
I mean,
Otherwise, you
I
just get Anchorman 2.
yeah, fair. I mean, I see that, but I think it works for me in the sense that like I could easily see like because he even said like he got set up there by like his dad or whoever for
Yeah,
an
right.
internship at the
That's fair,
job,
right.
and he's one of those people that just sleepwalks his way through promotions that does absolutely no work. Like it's a play on like those people that just continuously climb the ladder that do dick.
Yeah, I mean that's fair, right? Yeah. So I don't know. I didn't necessarily hate it, but I just like I don't know. It wasn't like one
Just
of the
doesn't hit as
funnier
hard for
things to
you.
me.
I
What,
feel
but
that.
like I want to talk more about the little things. Maybe my second favorite part of this movie, and it's so small, when he's at what was it called? Club Vandersex? Is
Yeah,
that what
Club
it was called?
Vandersex. Yeah, Club
When
Vandersex.
when he tries to say the safe word and they're like, "Are you sure?" And then they like bring out that machine.
The massive machine dildo.
Right, right. Like that's funny enough. But then when they're pointing it at him, it has like a laser sight.
Yeah, spot.
It's
Yeah,
like the laser sight was like I was on the floor, dude. I couldn't take it. It was so funny. Because
it's
why on earth would that have a laser sight? It doesn't make any sense.
yeah, but it's yeah, that's so funny, and I love that too. And it's so funny again that like I'm gonna continuously pivot back to the people that are like it's just making stereotypes and it's offensive, but it's like it's yes, but they're like the point is that they're stupid Americans, and each one of them that has the thought of like what they think the Eurotrip's going to be, it blows up in their face in spectacular fashion. This
Right, he's the
moron just
joke.
yeah, he wants to go
He's the
there, and
joke
all
in
he
that
thinks is he's
scene.
going to get these huge, great sexual experiences, and he ends up pretty much getting sexually assaulted. Like it's what
Yeah,
it
and
is.
that I mean that's a teen comedy trope too, right? Like which is kind of like relatable in a lot of ways. Where it's like when you're a teen boy, like you have all these fantasies about what it's gonna be like, and then like when you get to the real thing, it's kind of like, whoa, wait a second. Like this is
Like
not how I dreamt it up. Like what
yeah,
is
it's
going
like
on?
nothing like that. Like he talks so
And
much
that
about getting away from his puritanical like home bringing to get back to like the
right,
sexual
right.
roots.
And
Then
that I
when he
mean that's the
gets it, he's
thing.
like, no.
That's a teen comedy trope, like where you find yourself like in way over your head, like
Way,
way fast,
way,
you
way
know?
over your
Like
head. Yeah.
so
Like it's
I don't know. I think like, to your point though, he's the gag in that scene. Like
yeah,
they're not
yeah,
making
yeah,
fun of that lifestyle or
yeah.
like people who are into those things. They're making fun of this guy who somehow stumbled his way into this place that he doesn't even have the slightest idea what it's about, you know?
Absolutely. Just completely the joke just entirely on him. And on all of them. Like it's what do you think about some of the other cameos in this movie? Like Vinnie Jones, Xena the Warrior Princess being the girl from Club Vandersex was probably one of my favorites.
Wait, that was Lucy Lawless.
Yeah, yeah,
I didn't even pick up on that.
yeah.
That's
Did you
hilarious.
say Frugersheimen? Yes, yes, Frugersheimen.
Even that part too. Like
It's
the
got the
fact
the
that he gets the
doll.
safe word and the safe word is just like some crazy German word he can't even pronounce and like they didn't talk about it at all. Like he was just like and again, he's the joke because he gets the safe word. They're like, "Listen, you need to say this word like it's important if you want it to
Just like,
stop."
and he just laughs it
And
off.
he just laughs it off. He's like, "Oh yeah, we're not going to be needing that." Like
Yeah, tosses it away. That's another small thing too that cracks me up is when he finally says the safe word and she looks up and it's she just had the like symbol monkey and the like so like the idea was that the symbol monkey was just slapping his balls consistently.
yeah. Yeah. Really funny.
So
And
like
then so like
so good.
that whole sequence in Amsterdam is pretty good to me. Like when they're doing the pot brownie thing, because with the pot brownies, I felt like the writers like nailed me to the wall, right? Because for the first like 5 minutes of it, or 5 minutes is probably long, but like for the beginning of that whole part, I'm like, okay, I get it. Like it's like pot brownies, like they're freaking out, man, and like and she's got the munchies. Look at that, and I'm like, oh, this is so lame. But then when they do the turn on you, and it's like, dude, we're just like Jamaican Rastafarian guys who have a bakery. Like, what's your problem? You know, like, and it's like you said, like, again, they're the joke. Like their stupid preconceived notions of what they're doing here is making them look like morons to all these people who are just hanging out enjoying brownies, you know?
Like they're just dumb Americans, and that's the joke. It's like we're gonna send four dumb idiots all the way over there, and we're going to, play on the preconceived notions of the stereotypes that they think in their heads. And it's like, yeah, that works perfectly. Um, while we're in the Amsterdam portion here, Jim, there is one thing we need to talk about.
Yeah.
Uh, and so this was something while watching it last night that Heather had found and showed me.
Uh-huh.
And my God, Jim, if this scene, so this is a scene that the studio forced them to remove from the movie. Like they weren't
Oh
allowed to put this
boy.
in the movie. And
Okay.
so I'm just going to read you what they have for it. So despite all the political incorrectness in the film, there was one scene that was just too much for the studio, referred to by the producers as the Anne Frank sex scene.
Oh my God.
Yep. So in the scene never filmed, Cooper finds a flyer for a sex club called the Secret Room and accidentally misidentifies the house of Anne Frank as the club. He asks somebody, "Is this the secret room?" And they go, "Yes, it will change your life." Encountering a big line outside, Cooper assumes he has found the correct place, but instead of waiting, he goes through a back door. Once he discovers a small room with a small bed, he decides to get naked and wait for a sex worker, but soon after finds himself exposed in front of a tour group. To make matters worse, Anne Frank's only living relative was part of the tour group.
Dude, that is way better. That
Right?
is
Like,
such a bummer that they didn't put that in there.
dude, as soon as Heather showed me that, I was like, God damn it, like those cowards, like
Yeah, that fits the movie way better. Yeah. Like, 'cause again,
that's
it's could you hit the nail on the head any harder for the American who does not respect European culture for him to just be butt ass naked in Anne Frank's
crazy.
bed waiting for a prostitute? Like it's like how can you beat it? Like that's like so personifies what this
Like
movie is trying to do.
that's so perfect. And man, I wish they at least had filmed it so it was a deleted scene to find on the DVD because God, that just sounds so funny.
Yeah. I'm
Like,
I'm really holding back making a joke about our previous one-star reviewer at this point. So, I
oh
gotta,
man.
it's like it's right there, but you just gotta be careful about what you say these days.
Yeah, it's very true. So we'll just let the air take the joke for us if we won't say it out loud.
But no, so like but that would be hilarious. I'm really bummed that that didn't make it into the movie though. That's like would be so perfect.
That I think would have fit really well as like a really funny set piece for the movie that would complement the Vatican set piece really well also
Yeah, yeah,
because that's another scene that very much highlights that just like these that Cooper especially just has zero respect for any like culture outside of it. Not even like his own probably because you never really see him really care much for anything, but just like the disrespect and just ignorant like carefree attitude that he just goes through life in. Like he just sees a rope behind an encased glass mirror and he's like, "What's this?" Just yanks it.
yeah.
That
That whole
scene, that
sequence
whole
with the
thing
Pope is
killed like
so crazy.
and what like makes it work so well for me is the Italian guy in the crowd who's like showing the people the directions, but then it's just like, "Oh, Mother Mary Joseph, the Pope is dead." Like,
Yeah. And then he gets all excited when, like, 5 minutes later, they pick a new pope as if that's how it works at all.
like it's
But
just
it's also just so funny because, like, I that is something an American would do. You know what I mean? Like, and maybe again, this is just my stereotypes about Americans showing, but like, they would be the idiot who's like, "Ah, look, a rope. I'm gonna like pull it."
just
Like, you
yank
know what I
this.
mean? Like, ah, check this out. You know, like they just like they wouldn't know any better, and they wouldn't care to know any better. They're just like, "I'm gonna tug on it." That's what it looks like you're supposed to do.
Yeah, so those those set pieces hit really hard for me. Um, things that don't so much hit for me that I could kind of take it or leave it on. The while Vinny Jones is hilarious, the soccer hooligan thing I could really take it or leave it. And
Yeah.
when they come back at the end too to just like save him from getting like arrested for the rest of his life. And like again, it's a dumb comedy. Like, why are you thinking about it too much? But it was just like,
Yeah,
yeah, all right, yeah, great. They're back and he's okay. Like, okay, yeah, sure. Like,
I definitely put it into that bucket, but then it's also like it's not lost on me that that scene is just like totally infantilizing the Swiss Guard, which again, such an American thing to
to do,
do.
yeah.
You know what I mean?
He's like, I hate you,
Like
Itals, but I'm Swiss.
right, right. But the Swiss Guard looks so like fruity, and they have like the stupid like halberds, and like that's just such an American thing. Like, look at these assholes guarding the fucking Vatican. Like, of course they're pulling on the bell rope, you know? Like, so like it works in a way for me that I get why you think it's stupid because it is, but that was one for me where I was like, nah, I'll put it in the this is a dumb comedy box.
No, it definitely does go in the dumb comedy box, but that's more the ones where like that didn't make me chuckle at all. I
But
also
I
could kind of
will say though, I agree with you that the scene with the soccer hooligans when they get to England, I was like never like on the edge of my seat the way it felt like the movie was trying to get me to be. Like the whole time I was like, all right, cool, they're gonna end up drinking with these guys, like obviously. And like it didn't quite hit for me as well as the rest of the movie did. Like I didn't really get into this until they got to Amsterdam. Everything before that I could kind of
yeah
take or leave it.
the the guy from Saturday Night Live playing the like Italian like just saying Muscuzzi, like I hated that.
Wait,
It did,
which guy is that? Was that Fred Armisen?
yeah, Fred Armisen, that's his name.
Okay.
Yeah, that did nothing for me. Like that, it was just like Miss Good, and like it's just like, all right, okay, sure, why
It
not?
was
Like,
weird. It was kind of like, hey, they like sexually assault people on trains in Europe. Look out.
yeah, like it didn't like that joke did nothing for me. Like for me, I'm the same way though. Like until they get to once they meet up with the twins and they like get to Amsterdam is like really where
But
the jokes
also,
really start to like land hard.
even then though, there's like the scene craft of this movie is good, which I think speaks to the writers because even then in that scene with the sex pest, which I kind of agree is like kind of when they realize that they're about to go into a tunnel and he's just got like that like evil smirk on his face, like it cracks me up because he's just like, yep, it's checkmate, guys. Like that's a long tunnel. It's gonna be dark for a while, and I'm in here. What are you gonna
But
do? You know?
I got you now. Yeah, no, that is
Like
it.
they still set up and
They
pay
find
that off like really well,
yeah,
even if it like the whole thing doesn't necessarily work as a whole for me.
they managed to like find at least little beats within the scene that could make you chuckle if as long even if like the whole of the scene is not really doing it for you.
Yeah, and I
Um,
mean, there's one more thing I have to touch on.
yeah,
It was maybe one of the funniest movie scenes I've ever seen, and we've done like on the show. I think it's like easily in the top funniest. When they're doing that whole exposition dump for what the Mike or whatever her name is doing for the summer, and the whole time the little brother is in the background, like
just
he
goose
like
stepping.
draws the mustache and like is like goose stepping, and like it's so funny, and it's like I thought it was genius because I couldn't tell you a single word that those guys were saying, and like it did not matter what they were saying. Like I get the gist. Like sure, he found out where she is now, and he's gonna make a stand and go see her, you know?
Yeah,
Um, so like it just worked so perfectly because like that scene, I guess, kind of does need to be in the movie. Like you need to get me from point A to point B, and you need to do the shoe leather of like how they're getting there. But this movie is also like, but you don't really care, right? So like here's something hilarious going on in the background. And it works again because the other friend is like the butt of the joke. Like the whole joke is he's like, dude, do you see this? Like, what is going on? And like he can't get anybody's attention about it. It's just, it was so funny. It was so well crafted.
I don't know. That one cracked me up a lot too, and it is something to be said for sometimes the simplest of comedy is at times so funny. Though it's something as simple as like, well, what if the little German boy behind there just like idolized Adolf Hitler and just goose stepped like, and only Cooper saw it, and it's like, yep, right into the bank. Like, let's
Right,
go.
right.
Like
Exactly.
another one that really cracked me up, and it's probably the last big thing that we haven't talked about in this movie, is the whole scene in Bratislavia, where Like the thing that obviously the big thing is, the twins making out with each other, which is still absolutely hilarious. But the one that cracks me up the most in that entire scene is when they're getting ready and they're like, "What can we get with $1.25?" And they're in this like 5-star resort, like the penthouse, and
I know exactly what
yeah,
you're gonna
they
say.
tip the dude a nickel, and he's like, "A nickel," and then he slaps the shit out of his
Right,
boss,
right.
and he's
Like
like,
it works because of how over the top the way he quits is, you know?
"How
Like
silly." I opened my
so
own
perfect.
hotel. Like it's
Yeah, with the
funny.
nickel. And again, though, it really is like such an American stereotype that that's how Eastern Europe is specifically, you know? Like we're all the like, yeah, capitalism won and look what communism did to that place, you know?
Yeah.
Like it's so how we're taught to believe about that stuff, you know? So it's like it's perfect. It's perfect. It fits the
I
movie so well.
Yeah, I think this movie is a very fun satire at American sensibility about like European countries and everything. So
Right.
it's like
Right.
so it was
And it's
very fun to
also
go back to this and see it like not only hold up but have that layer to it.
yeah, it's also not lost on me that maybe we're giving them a little too
Too
much
much
credit
credit. Yeah, we're
because
giving it a lot of nuance.
it's all well, I'm not saying the nuance isn't there, but what I'm saying is that this was 2004 in the United States, which I was there was not a particularly nuanced time.
Yeah.
Like,
In 2004, I would definitely fall into that ignorant American camp. We were like, what,
right, like
14, just dumb kids.
if you think people are ignorant now, you should have seen them before the internet really caught on. Like, oh my God, was it way worse?
Just absolutely spot on.
So
So
like
but
part of me just wonders if like we're giving them kind of like and maybe the writers were trying to do this, right? Like they were also aware of how crazy and ignorant everything was back then. But like part of me wonders if I'm not just like, yeah, but also those jokes are literally just for the ignorant people that were going to see movies back then. Like that's really what they were going for.
I think it could be a healthy assortment of both.
But either way, though, I think it is what makes it the movie that still works the best out of the comedies we've done. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
whether it was intentional or not, like that lens is still there for me, and it makes it funny.
yeah, and I definitely think it's helped it age better than a lot of the other ones in terms of like that device. Obviously, still plenty of offensive jokes if you're looking for them and you're
I'm
looking to be
really,
offended.
I'm really struggling to think what was so offensive about this movie. I like
Uh,
maybe that's
I
just
would
because I'm an ignorant American, but I don't
maybe
know.
I would say the one part where Michelle Trachtenberg gets them into the VIP by saying Cooper is retarded.
Okay, yeah, all
Probably
right, fair,
that one would
fair.
probably hold up for people to point to. And
You're
the
not
Swiss
wrong.
guy's like, "Oh yes, I see." It's like, "Have a very special day for a very special boy." He's like eating the ice cream.
Yeah. But
Okay.
I don't know. I still thought that was hilarious.
No, I thought it
Like,
was funny too, but also like I
because
think offensive
again,
things
hold
are
on
funny.
though. He's the joke. Like the joke is that he is passable as somebody. You know what I mean? Like the fact like the joke is that he's sitting there eating an ice cream cone like a dipshit. You know what I'm saying? Like
No, I'm with you there. I'm just saying, either way, like I would still laugh at it because I laugh at most anything because I have a horrible sense of humor.
yeah.
I
That
think I
also
think
but
dark things are very funny. Like
I
if
don't
the
know. Have
joke
you
is
heard
funny.
though? They're bringing that word back. I think you were the one who told me that. That word's coming back.
Did dude,
It's
I
gonna
did
be
tell you
allowed
that.
again.
That word is coming back. People are using it in a very healthy manner all over the place. And I know it's coming back because like the teens are using it everywhere. All
Yeah.
the teens at my job, man, that left and right they're using it.
Yeah, it is crazy to think though that in 2004 they were just like, "All right, Disney star Michelle Trachtenberg, this is your line." Like, you know what I mean? Like there is something weird about that they were just like, "Yep, that's what you're gonna say." Like,
We're gonna have
because
you.
it's crazy. It is a little bit crazy to think about. It does
We're gonna
kind
have
of
you
like shock
bust.
you.
But I mean, I think it also just goes to show that it's just like that's just how people talked back then. They didn't.
Sign of the times, yeah.
Yeah, it was just a sign of the times. Like that's just people just use that word as part of their vocabulary. And
Right. Like
whether
it's
it's
interesting. It's interesting that you bring that up because I think in context, that's probably one of the spots in the movie they're not even necessarily trying to be offensive. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's just like that was just part of the lingo back then. So it was less like we can be offensive by saying this and more just like that's just, like people just talked like that back then. And whether it's
Yeah.
right or wrong is a completely different conversation for a completely different ignorant people that aren't us. But that
Yeah, I mean,
that's
I'll tell you right now, I have no opinion on that
yeah.
subject. I'm smarter
I
than that.
yeah,
I'm not talking about it.
not touching that pine cone. But is there anything else you feel like we haven't touched upon on Eurotrip?
I'm mostly curious to see if this is the most full frontal male nudity you've seen in a movie, like in
Oh,
a single movie.
definitely.
It's gotta be, right?
Got it. Definitely up there. I can't think of another movie where I've seen that many penises up close and personally like that.
Yeah, your
Out,
websites don't count, mister.
out. I
So
was gonna
yeah,
say
don't
outside of
count
my real
those.
life, I don't think I've seen that many penises live and in color. Uh,
Yeah, but
uh,
that's really the last thing I have. I don't know that there's much else to say about it. I mean, it's just like a pretty like run of the mill teen comedy, right?
it's a pretty dumb teen comedy, but one that feels like it gets over the hump due to a lot of the stuff that we talked of comparative to some other comedies that we've done from these 2000s. And I'm sure this won't be the last of these 2000s sex comedies that we've come across. Although I can imagine that I don't think we realized it at the time, but this was slowly starting to become a dying breed. We like today, do you even see any sex comedies anymore?
No, I still think it has a few years though before it really, really like dies,
Eyes off.
dies.
Yeah,
Because
but
I can think of at least a few that are like even better than this movie that come out in the next like 5 years or so between like 2004 and 2009.
yeah, but it was
Sex
slowly
Drive comes to mind immediately, which is like very much like inspired by this
sex
movie, I would
drive.
say.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, once we got to the 2010s and on, I feel like that just like completely fell out of favor.
It definitely starts to die out, yeah.
Yeah, you really don't see them
Actually,
anymore.
couple more quick hitters here. It's crazy to watch this movie, and you kind of touched on this a little bit earlier, but it's crazy to watch this movie compared to like another teen sex comedy like say Superbad, where the people in the movie really like elevate it. You know what I'm saying? Whereas like, Jonah Hill goes on to be a big comedy star. Michael Cera gets like a lot of work in a lot of different comedy movies because he's got his shtick down so perfectly.
Yeah,
Whereas like, who the fuck is Scott Meklowicz and
couldn't tell you.
Jacob Pitts? Like,
Yeah, couldn't
who
tell
are
you.
those guys?
Never see these kids ever again. Well, it's because that's where you start to see the change, especially in comedies and sex comedies. Because yeah, Superbad also kind of a sex comedy, but more in the sense that the comedy change where it's less about the set pieces and jokes that are funny and more about it's what them talking about is funny,
Right, like
more
it's like dialogue
situational.
driven kind of
Yeah,
stuff.
it's
Yeah.
dialogue driven funny, and you put now these improv comedians that are really
Right.
clever and funny that are going to say wild and out of pocket stuff instead of it
Right.
being like, oh, here's like a situation in a set piece of a movie that's going to like be the highlight of the joke.
Yeah, no, and we've talked about that a few times actually. I forget what last comedy it came up with, but like yeah, like there's a difference. Like it definitely starts to trend more toward you need people who are just funny off the cuff and aren't necessarily reading lines and are just gonna say something that they know will crack people up in this exact moment. Like you said, improv. And like that is maybe a critique that I have of Eurotrip is a lot of times it feels like people are reading lines that are kind of like almost written by somebody really funny, but they're not quite the same as having like a really good comedian
It
take
didn't do
like
it.
10 or 15 different tries at it. You know what I mean? And just picking the one that's the funniest.
Absolutely. Because like on paper, there's really no difference between Cooper and Jonah Hill's character from Superbad. They're the same exact character. The difference is that
Right.
Jonah Hill is very good at improv comedy.
Yeah, I
This
mean
other guy is
the
not.
difference is as an audience member is that one of them is like one of the funnier performances in a movie ever, and I'll remember like specific lines about it for the rest of time, and like the other one is like the guy in Eurotrip,
Yeah.
like
Yeah. Like there doesn't seem as much ad-libbing to be going around in Eurotrip that would come up with like various scenes that could maybe elevate what was written. It's pretty much just like we're reading what was written, and like that's going to be the comedy.
That's how it felt anyway.
Yeah.
Maybe that's not how it actually went down, but that's just, I don't know. It didn't quite like reach that peak. And like, I think it's because the casting, like with the benefit of hindsight, it's easy to say like, well, who are these guys that they cast in this movie compared to all these other guys who make like way better and more memorable comedy movies, like in the same time frame.
Oh, I definitely feel that.
And
So
on
yeah,
that note, I want to ask you, have you ever seen the 2006 movie Peaceful Warrior?
never even heard of that.
Starring Scott Mecklewicz?
You diving into his filmography, if he even
Yeah, a
has one
little
after
bit.
this.
I don't want to get like too great into it, but this is the one that stuck out to me because the synopsis is just tremendous.
Okay.
Dan, a college student and a world champion gymnast, is disturbed and wants to add some meaning to his life. A chance encounter leads him to discover an enlightened way ahead.
Yeah. Yeah, it sounds like
You want
something. All
to?
right.
Do you want to guess who gets second billing in this movie?
Oh my God. Do I even want to know? Who is it?
Nick Nolte in the part of Socrates.
Oh boy. Yep.
What is
That's
Peaceful Warrior, dude?
that's
What is that?
that's a movie that screams like has to be direct to streaming, right? Like there's no way that's
In 2006, that wasn't a thing.
oh yeah, that wasn't. All right, so then that was
This
direct to
must have
DVD.
came out in theaters.
No, there's no way that came out in theaters. Direct to DVD. It had to be.
All right, hold on. We're looking into this.
There's no way that came out in theaters because if it did and it had a decent enough release, we would have seen it.
Yeah. While we're on the subject, it's gonna seem like I'm piling onto Scott Melkowitz here, or Meklowicz, but like, man, I hated that dude's haircut in this movie. Like, man, I hated it so much.
There's
Which
just a very
actually brings me to a fun game that I want to start playing on this podcast. And we've kind of like played it in a couple of episodes before.
I,
How much better is this movie if Chris Evans is in this movie?
he
Chris
plays the
Evans as
he plays
Scott.
the Scott.
Tell me this
Yeah.
isn't 100 times better.
Well, it's got to be not another teen movie era Chris though, because like jacked Captain America Chris is like too big,
Well, no,
too big.
obviously, right. He needs to be like a teenager. Yeah,
Yeah,
like I'm not saying like you put Captain America in Eurotrip. Like that would be insane. No, of course not.
imagine. They're
Like,
just like three
like,
losers hanging out with Captain America. They're like, dude, why is
wait,
this guy
you
not
mean
popular?
like that like 6'3", 220 pound like muscle machine is going to Europe because he's desperate for a girl? I don't buy it.
Right?
Like,
Desperate to get with
Fiona
Mika.
never would have left Captain America. Like, come on.
Also, it's crazy that he never, like, in the process of them being pen pals, like when he was under the assumption that that was his sister, been like, yo, dude, what's the deal with your sister? Like,
Yeah, I mean, no, I could. That's kind of weird. That's kind of weird. Like, could you imagine, like,
like, yo, dude,
saying to one of
your
your buddies,
sister,
like, "Yo, what's up with your sister? Can
yeah,
I get a note on that? Like, can I
yeah,
get a number?" Like,
your sister seen anybody? And
that's just so weird.
she's like, what? You mean Jan?
Peaceful Warrior did have what seems to be a pretty limited theater release.
Yeah, that's right.
It never got above 50 theaters, as best I can
Ooh,
tell. But it still came out in theaters, and man,
sorry,
I am
Scott.
so curious about seeing this movie.
Well, you can hunt that one down in your own time. I want nothing to do with that.
Dude, come on, it's from Lionsgate.
Oh, yeah, all right, yeah, that's not helping your cause.
Yeah. I mean, look, I'm just saying, it came out in theaters. There's a chance I'm gonna pick it on this show.
Oh, God, you fucking bastard.
But well, that'll be for a while down the road. It's in
Yeah, we will be
2006.
hitting 2006 for a minute.
Um, but yeah, no, that was the only thing that stood out to me about his filmography. Like, there's a couple other movies here. Gone in 2006, which I've never heard of.
The movie's just
Uh,
called Gone, or it's called Gone in 2006.
no, Gone is the name of the movie, and it comes out in
Okay, all right,
2006.
all right.
Yeah, Gone in 2006.
Gone in 2006, coming out 2006.
Um,
Now, where question for you then is
yeah,
where does this lie in the teen sex comedy realm for you?
that's a good question. I mean, it's interesting because I know we're gonna talk about a lot more of these movies.
We though I don't know if there's that many after this because I didn't see Sex Drive in theaters, and that's also not till like 2009. And we're in 2004, where we're only a few short months away from Anchorman, and Anchorman completely changes the teen sex comedy, like we talked about.
Yeah, that's fair. So then let's start with this then. I think it is clearly leagues better than the absolute travesty that was American Wedding. I
Well,
think it's like
all right, get your last pot shot in. Go on.
no, well, do you disagree? I
No, no,
mean,
I would
let's be real
absolutely.
here.
I agree that it's leagues better than American Wedding, but I will not stand by your slander that it's like the most atrocious movie ever made.
It is. It is. But all right, so let's do this game again. I just brought up a list from Complex for the 50 best teen sex comedies.
All right, here we go.
I think that number one is kind of controversial here.
Is it Animal House?
No.
All right, then yeah, then yeah.
Porky's
Yeah,
1982, which I think is like it's the peak of man, they really should never make that movie
that
again,
movie.
Mountain, right? Like in
Yeah,
terms of teen
yeah,
sex comedies, it's like the creepiest one. They're like spying on girls in a locker room, which
yeah.
is
That one.
weird, right?
Yeah, that one is not great. Although, I mean, to be fair, every single teen sex comedy has at least one thing in it that's very voyeuristic and probably like in real life would be like very predator-esque, but in a teen sex comedy, you're kind of like laughing at them and not with them.
I
But
don't
it
know
but
if
but it
anything gets
is
quite as far as Porky's
no, but
does,
it
when
is.
they
But
literally like make a hole in the
yeah, no,
locker
no, no.
room.
I will say that Porky's is like probably the worst offender of doing that.
So let's just round out this top five here though and put that into perspective, right?
Okay.
So number two, and I think the important thing to keep in mind here, I don't know where we're going to see Animal House on this list because I think the teen part of it is really important. Like
Oh, so like
teen,
Animal House might be out
teen
because it's
sex comedy,
college.
I presume that they're in high school still, right? Like I don't necessarily think they're in college yet.
Gotcha. They weren't in
Um,
college, Porky's?
I don't think so. I
Ooh,
mean,
I thought
maybe.
they were in
I'll be
college.
honest with you. I've never seen the whole movie Porky's, and I probably never will.
I watched it like way back in the day when we were in like high school, but there was never anything that I was like, yeah, that was something I need to watch all the time. Like I watched it once and that was more than enough for me.
Yeah, that's fair. But coming into number two, a movie that I think this is going to set the standard so far for like the tier that Eurotrip has no chance of reaching.
Okay.
1982's Fast Times at Ridgemont High.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, like that's a way better than
Yeah,
Eurotrip, right? Like it's
way
not
better.
even close.
Although like on the teen sex comedy realm, that's very tame, that movie. Like I don't know if I would really group that one because there's really not a lot of like suggestive sex in it, as much as it
Uh,
is kind of just like a day in the life in the 80s. Like I would consider that movie more akin to like Days and Confused, which is just kind of like a day in the life and less being like we're trying to make a raunchy sex comedy. Like there are a few scenes in it, but I don't know if the overall movie is really trying to
yeah,
do that.
that's fair. That's fair. It's more like this is what being a teenager was like in the 80s. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Because
think
even
that the
like
line between those two things is so thin that I'm like not even interested in making the distinction, you know? Like they're the
that's
same to
fair.
me.
Yeah, that's fair. Okay, that's fair.
Uh, this kind of puts my high school theory to bed. 1984's Revenge of the Nerds comes in third, which maybe beats Porky's because there is like a literal rape in that movie. Like,
Yeah, that
it's
it's the 80s were a wild time, man.
there is like a like horrific sexual assault that ends in marriage and children. It's like, whoa, 80s, you're really bringing your fastball. Like,
80s, listen, they were all on coke. Nobody knew what the fuck they were doing back then.
yeah, and
They
then
were
I
all
mean,
over the
like,
place.
I think as I'm going through this, like, I really do think that it's not this movie that we just watched isn't really anywhere near the top tier, right? So in fourth place is 2007 Superbad, which I think we can both agree is like
Which
way above.
like And I feel like this list too is really showing me like probably the age of the reviewer because I like Porky's and Revenge of the Nerds, while like sure they were like one of the like the first and biggest of the sex comedies, are not good movies, like even by the sex comedy standard. Like you're really gonna tell me Superbad is worse than Revenge of the Nerds? Like dude, like what are you smoking?
I don't know. I can see where those movies are very different. What I would say is I would put Fast Times and Revenge of the Nerds in a pretty high tier. Like I think they're up there with Superbad. I do think that they're different than Superbad, and I think it makes sense that you like Superbad more because you were like a teenager when Superbad came out, you know?
Margin. But I mean, I would put Fast Times above. I would have right now from the all you've said, Fast Times is number one,
Yeah, I think
and
that's
then
fair.
Super bad.
Number five is this movie HOTS, like
What?
H.O.T.S from 1979. I have no idea what that is.
Yeah, never heard of that.
Apparently Danny Bonaducci's in it though, so
All
that
right,
tells you
there we go. That tells me all I need to know about that movie.
Six, 1999's American Pie.
All right.
Seven, it's absolutely bananas that this movie is seven on this list. It like I don't know. Maybe I need to look more into like what their grading criteria is here. But coming in seventh, 1983's Tom Cruise vehicle,
Risky
Risky
Business.
Business, which is like so much better than any movie we've talked about so far, right?
That movie is like incredible. But I don't know if it's so much a comedy as much as it is like kind of like a dark satirical. Like
I
it
mean,
definitely has moments of comedy, but I don't know if I'd put it as like a straight comedy.
I
But it
would
definitely
say
has the teen sex stuff all wrapped up in a bundle.
I would say it's a comedy, but it does definitely get to like some deeper themes than any of these movies, which definitely
Yeah.
helps. I do see what you're saying. Like there's a reason to make a distinction between them.
Because like when you think someone says like teen sex comedy, my first instinct is like I want it to be. It's like a disaster movie. Like when you think of a disaster movie, my first instinct isn't to think of Titanic. It's to think of like Dante's Peak. Like I want a level of cheese to it that will just automatically eliminate it from being considered like an actual like good movie, and it's more just like
Yeah.
it's stupid, dumb, fun entertainment.
Yeah, no, I get where you're coming from at least a little bit. Yeah, I
Yeah.
do see what you mean.
Yeah, but I could see still how
Um,
like all those should really still be grouped in together because they are still technically within the ballpark of the genre.
yeah. So I am gonna keep going down the list here. I'm gonna skip some of these other ones because there's like a lot of 80s movies in here that
And if we've never heard
I
of them,
don't know
like
that
there's
we
no
really have strong
yeah.
opinions on. Like
Mm.
Weird Science is in here. There's two movies I'd never heard of: The Last American Virgin in ninth, and then
Oh my
Hollywood
god.
Hot Tubs from 1984 in 10th. That
Wait,
sounds
what?
like it's very
Hot
much on the
Tops.
Porky line of things, right?
Yeah, like oh my god.
And then
The
this
fact
is
that we still
interesting.
haven't even gotten to Animal House, and it seems like the criteria isn't that you have to be in high school.
I don't think Animal House is different to me though. Like it's hard for me to explain. Like even then Revenge of the Nerds, because like the point of Revenge of the Nerds is like they're in their first year in college. Like they're still like they just finished high school and it's like kind of a coming of age thing, which like Animal House sort of is too, but Animal House they're all like seniors, right? Like isn't that like
I have no idea. I think they're just like there.
yeah, it makes sense to me that it's not on this list. I don't know if I can explain that in a way that makes sense to you, but it makes sense to me
All
that it's not on here.
right.
But
Would
there's
you
a lot.
where would you put Animal House if we were adding it into all of these movies that we've done so far? If we've realized that the peak is kind of like Fast Times and Super Bad right now, and then like American Pie, like where would you slot in Animal House anywhere up there, or do you like are you kind of like blah on that movie?
I like Animal House, but I haven't seen it in a while. I can't really say too strongly either way. I do remember it being kind of funny, but I also remember the last time I watched it, there was some stuff where I was like, like,
Yeah,
I don't
there
know, Animal
yeah,
House, that's
a
a,
lot of
like kind of
there's
out there.
there's a lot of stuff in that movie, but
Yeah.
it still is funny despite all that. And I would put it I wouldn't put it above any of those, but I would put it I think I'd still put it in the top five, at least for what we've talked about so far of all the movies. Being like Risky Business up there, Fast Times up there, Super Bad up there as the heap, and then like American Pie right underneath it. Animal House, and then you're like Porky's and Revenge of the Nerds and all that stuff.
Yeah, I do want to ask you, where do you put this movie up against 2008's Sex Drive? If we've never done, if we're probably not doing that one, I'm curious to see where. Would
So
you
I
take
like
Eurotrip or Sex Drive?
I would take Eurotrip over Sex Drive. I do like
I
Sex Drive, and I do think Sex Drive was very funny, but it also like really falls into like the really stupid category. And I think
Yeah,
Eurotrip gets the edge on me just for like that satirical look that it has, that like Sex Drive doesn't kind of have. But
I
that's
would
just
take Sex Drive. I think
that's fair.
that's
I
like a
know you're
really.
you're a big James Marsden guy. I know.
Yeah, yeah. It's because I love James Marsden. That's definitely why.
Love James Marsden. I
Do
know
you
you.
take Eurotrip or 2001's Wet Hot American Summer?
Oh, dude, Wet Hot American Summer. Like
Yeah, Wet Hot American Summer, right? Easy.
Wet Hot American Summer is so good.
And then I think that's really it. There's like not a lot. it- A lot of these are like, um, actually, okay, I got one more for you. This is one
That's
that we're never gonna do because we're way past it. Do you take Eurotrip or I believe it's 1998's? It's not on this list, but 1998's Can't Hardly Wait.
that's also I can't hardly wait.
Yeah, I'll also take Can't Hardly Wait.
Can't hardly wait. Great,
Who's
great.
gonna want you now, Amanda?
So good, so good. So yeah, so Eurotrip by default kind of still ends towards the lower of the barrel, but I still don't think that is a knock
Oh wait,
against it.
hold on, one more. Do
He's
you
got another.
take Eurotrip or what I would imagine is kind of like a spiritual sequel to this movie? Spiritual prequel to this movie, 2000's Road Trip.
Oh yeah, that's in college. They're in college
Is
for that.
it?
Yeah, yeah, they're in college for that.
All
The whole
right.
thing
Well,
is
they
he's
both
trying to
have
go.
trip in the name, so
They do
I'm
have
I'm
trip.
counting it.
I would take Road Trip. Fucking Tom Green in Road Trip is so funny.
Yeah, I don't know if I've ever seen Road Trip
He's
either. I
going
might have to go back and watch that one.
he's going to Austin, Massachusetts. You mean
Oh, I thought you
Boston?
meant Stone Cold
Yeah,
Steve
yeah.
Austin.
Yeah, if you've never seen that one, I would say give that one a chance. That one's really funny. Todd
But
Phillips before he hit that Joker fame.
yeah, dude, I watched Joker Folio do the other day.
Oh no, I'm not talking.
That
We're
was
not
a
talking
thing.
about
What the
it.
fuck was
Save that
that?
for your recommendations.
Yeah, I mean, I did. It's very confusing to me. I don't know. That might be a whole different episode.
Yeah, that's something. All
But
right.
yeah, there's not much else on here that like really stands out to me. Like I don't
It's
recognize a lot of these, and a lot of them are like 1991 Ski School, which I don't
yeah.
feel like I need to say anything more about it than for you to know what that is. It feels like a
A lot
South
of them.
Park.
Yeah, a lot of them just feel like they're probably just derivative of like Porky's and Revenge of the Nerds and all that stuff, where it's just like it was probably like direct to VHS, just like shitty sex comedies because they're easy to make.
Right.
So you don't have too many that really like hit towards the top, but all like the big ones that we've pretty much named are all like hit to a certain quality that are at least enjoyable. Like I don't
Yeah,
like
so
none of the ones you've named have been ones where I'm like I like would suffer through that.
yeah, I mean, and I'm picking out like the kind of the cream of the crop. But it's like, so I guess what I'm trying to say is Eurotrip is somewhere, it's not quite on the tier of like Revenge of the Nerds and Risky Business and Super Bad or Fast Times, but it's probably somewhere above, like, let me just read
Ski
out some
school,
titles to you here.
above ski
Oh, wait,
school.
one more that's important. Do you take The Girl Next Door or do you take Eurotrip? I think
Oh,
that's probably
dude.
one we're gonna do
How
in
do
the
you,
future,
yeah, how
right?
do you forget about the girl? No, I actually did not see that one in theaters, but we watched that one a lot uh on DVD when we were all hanging out. I remember a
Oh,
lot.
interesting. Okay. So
Yeah,
then it's
fun,
not going to come up. So yeah, do you do
fun
you do you take
movie.
Eurotrip or Girl Next Door?
I would take The Girl Next Door, man. Like that movie is a lot of fun. Timothy
I think
Oliphant,
so too.
so good in that movie. Elisha Cuthbert, just like gorgeous and hilarious. And it also gave us what's his name? Paul Dano. Like how like the movie gave us Paul
That's
Dano.
true. Paul Dano, one of his early roles.
Yeah.
So yeah, like all of those kind of early 2000s ones, and this is probably just a function of like what age I was when they came out. Like it's not quite Fast Times, it's not quite super bad, but they're probably above like I don't know 1985's Private Resort or 1985's Cave Girl or 1987's Jocks or
Yeah.
you know like
They're fun in their own way that obviously doesn't quite hit the heights of like the peaks that we saw in the 80s and 90s, but they still have a worthy place in the genre.
yeah, or like hold on, I gotta see if I can find it again. There was one 1984's Hot Dog the Movie.
Yep. Yeah, that sounds like something, all right.
The only other one on here is Meatballs 3. Have you ever seen any of the Meatballs movies?
I saw the first one, the one with the Bill Murray one.
With Bill Murray, yeah. I don't
Yeah.
know. Patrick Dempsey is apparently in Meatballs 3 in
What?
1986, but that's on this list. But again, I would probably
It's
put Eurotrip somewhere above Meatballs 3, right? It's in like the middle tier.
yeah, it's so great when you find those like direct to DVD movies that like there's like a huge big star in it because they were like cutting their teeth around this time. So you'll get like Patrick Dempsey in like Meatballs 3 or like Matthew
Yeah, he's
McConaughey in like Texas Chainsaw Massacre 4. Like
it says he's 14 in
he's
Patrick
14 in
Dempsey
it.
plays a nerdy 14-year-old virgin in Meatballs 3.
Oh my, like gotta watch it now.
Yeah.
How do I not? Yeah, so all worthy additions to the teen sex comedy genre. And I think with that, I think we're ready to turn it over to our star ratings. Jim, are we lucky enough to get the Roger Ebert drop today?
I don't know. I'm being kind of stingy with it these days. Maybe that position will change, but I don't know if I can quite come out and say that this is a great film.
This is the one for him.
It's
I'm
no
honestly,
Dr. Dolittle too.
yeah, and I think Roger Ebert actually, Jim, did not review Eurotrip. We do not have a review for Eurotrip. So this movie
I
was
can't say that for
not
sure.
speaking to Raj that week. He was like, nope, not tricking me into that one. But all right, let's hear it from you. What's your final rating and thought for Eurotrip?
I mean, I think it there's like a lot of quality here that I can see kind of like that's very subtle, you know? Um, but it's also like a really dumb teen movie, so it's hard for me to give it like too high of a score. I think I'm just gonna kind of like take the coward's way out and give it 2.5 out of 5. I'm just gonna land dead middle, dead
That's
center.
dead center middle. I think that's fine. I'm gonna go just above you there, and I'm gonna give it a threer. For all the same things that you said just there. It's just a fun, stupid sex comedy that holds up a bit better than some of the other ones for us, thanks to some, really funny jokes that go a long way for our sense of humor. So for that, it's landing hard for me. So with a three from me and a 2.5 from you, going to give us an overall score of a 5.5. And we're going to do some battles right now here, Jim. Do you take in the first round Eurotrip or Bruce Almighty?
Eurotrip.
I also would take Eurotrip. Would you take Eurotrip or X-Men?
X-Men.
Yeah, I would also take X-Men. Eurotrip, great comedy, but it's like, let's be real. It's not better than X-Men. We can't sing too many praises here on Eurotrip. So it's going to settle right now in the 39 spot, just behind X-Men, just ahead of Bruce Almighty, right in the middle of the pack with a lot of other movies there. So I think that's a good spot for it. A worthy addition to the list. Do you
For
want to take a
sure.
guess at next week's?
Um, we didn't spend much time in the box office. Give me a hint. What do you
We
got?
did not. So we're sticking with the comedy movies, and it is by a comedy troupe, of whose prior movie we've done already.
Oh, that's a pretty dead giveaway. Comedy troupe means it's got to be Super Troopers, right? That's what you're
Oh,
going for.
that's what I'm
No,
going for.
no, but that's the only like ensemble comedy like movie that we've done. So it's got to be the next one of their movies, which at this point in 2004, it's a little early for Beer Fest, so I'm gonna guess it's Club Dread.
We will be doing Club Dread next. All in on the Super Trooper guys back in the 2000s. So naturally, I'm seeing every single thing they put out. So
I
we'll be
remember really loving this
yeah.
movie, but
No,
it's been a
dude,
long time since I've seen it.
this movie, I remember we used to watch all the. I feel like we might have watched this movie more than we watched Super Trooper. Obviously, Beer Fest was the one we watched the most. But then I think Club Dread.
I'm gonna spoil things right now. I think Beer Fest is really the peak of those guys, but I am interested to go back and watch Club Dread and see like how that holds up
Yeah,
compared
I
to what
think
my 15-year-old self thought of it.
yeah, I think this one should hopefully hold up particularly well because we really love their humor and sensibility and Super Troopers, and I'm hoping that continues on in Club Dread. So that's gonna be a fun one to dive into. Do you have any recommendations to leave for the people? You
Um,
trying to go back into Joker fully? You do right now?
no, I mean, I don't know. I watched it, like, I definitely can't recommend it, that's for sure. There was some interesting stuff going on. It wasn't quite as like a thumb in the eye of the Chudge as much as I heard that it was. Like, it didn't really like scream that to me. I don't know. Um, I did though. I did catch in theaters. It got re-released in theaters, and maybe by the time the people at home listen to this, they will have missed it. But I think this is another one you brought up on the show. I went and saw The Substance the other day.
Oh, they put it back in theaters.
Yeah, it was back in theaters like at least for this past weekend that we're recording this, and I was able to catch it in theaters, and like, man, what a movie! Like, oh my God.
Yeah, I actually haven't gotten to see it yet, because I missed it in theaters, and then they haven't re-released it anywhere. And trying to find it has been impossible, but it's about to come out on physical media next week, so I'm like
Uh,
just patiently waiting to buy it so that
yeah,
I can watch it.
I won't give away too much then, because I think for this movie in particular, going in blind is like pretty cool.
Yeah, I
But
know
like,
some of the basics for the most part.
okay, I will say though that like they captured like what is one of my favorite things in horror movies when they do it well is they captured this kind of like surrealist aspect to the whole thing, which I think made the movie like 100 times better, and I really loved it. So if you have not seen The Substance, I recommend go checking it out.
And I'm definitely all for it. And here's hoping Demi Moore rides that success all the way to that Oscar.
Is that why it got re-released? Is she getting buzz?
Well, she won the Golden Globe for it. Yeah,
Whoa.
and now like everyone's riding high on that movie, so it got the re-release to hopefully like give it that last push to get some Oscar noms.
This might be more giving it away, but if you know some of the basics, then maybe I'm not giving away much. But like, man, does Hollywood a sucker for movies about Hollywood? Like, they fall for it every time.
So, dude,
Like,
there's a few certainties in life: death, taxes, and Hollywood loving movies about Hollywood.
yeah. But yeah, that's all I got. What about you?
The last thing I just caught, actually in theaters, we talked about it a few episodes ago in our SWAT episode, but I went and caught Den of Thieves 2,
Ooh,
Pantera. Uh,
ooh,
just as entertaining and fun as the first one was. Obviously, these are movies that aren't going to win any awards or really change the game, but you would be hard pressed if you were just looking for a fun, like dramatic heist movie to do worse.
yeah.
Like it's the heist in this movie in particular, like the like 35 to 40 minutes of the actual heist, I was on the edge of my seat. I was like so 100% in. I was like,
Can
this
I
movie,
ask,
yes.
is the subtitle Pantera, like, do they just play the song Walk in the middle of the movie? Like, what is that all about?
There's zero reason why it's called Pantera.
That's so amazing.
If they had a reason for it, I did not hear it at all in the
Den
movie.
of Thieves 2, word that the demographic we're going for
Yeah,
pretty much relates to.
they just call it Den of Thieves 2 subtitle.
Yeah, right,
Like that's
exactly.
basically what it is. Because if there
That's
was a
so
meaning for
funny.
Pantera, did not happen while I was listening.
Yeah, speaking of Den of Thieves, I actually went back and like put it on again.
You actually finished it this time?
No, I made it less far than I did the
Oh,
last time I watched it.
God.
So it's still, jury's still out on that one. I'll have to get back to you. I
Oh my
did
God.
realize though that I was calling one of the characters Matty, like his name is Matt, because he looks like a real life criminal who's called like Matty Boy. But that is not what his name is in the movie, like at
Nice.
all.
Swing
It's
and a
like
miss.
Sean, like Merriman or something like that, is the main criminal guy in the movie. So
Okay. Oh, okay.
that
That's
was maybe leading to some confusion when we were talking the other
Maddie
day. It's
Boy.
like I was calling him a name that does you would have no way to know who I was talking about.
Hard disassociating there. That's too
Yeah, but
funny.
he does look like creepily like a guy who's a real life like criminal, like who's in
Maybe he
prison and like leads a prison gang.
maybe he based it off of that guy.
It could be, yeah, it's
It's
possible.
possible. It's possible. Anything's possible in the world of film. But yeah, and now I'll turn it over to you guys. Let us know down below if you are a fan of Eurotrip or if you think we're high on our own supply here, thinking that this movie still holds up as well as it does. And be sure to tune in here next week when we dive into Club Dread. And as always, we'll see you at the movies.